invest in ourselves. We all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Balanced Life. I say this every week, and I'm sure you're tired of hearing it, but you are my favorite people, and this is my favorite day of the week. Today on A Balanced Life, we have some really serious things to talk about, and I know how we approach those things in everyday life can literally leave us feeling very overwhelmed, as if there's not enough gas in our tank, and oftentimes wondering, do we have the stamina to keep going forward? You know, with the headlines of the day talking about, all the political issues, the mass shootings now around the globe, and, looking at what we're doing with our children educationally and how we're explaining to them what's happening in the world, and just even trying to figure out where is our center. Who are we? This pandemic has shaken us. The world's landscape has really gotten us to this space of not really being able to identify who we are when we look at ourselves in the mirror. And I know that some of you are saying, I know exactly who I am. I know exactly what I stand for. And I know how I'm going to approach my everyday life. Well, people like me still have days that we struggle, not with just getting up in the morning, but really trying to figure out this landscape in which we're living. And how do I navigate and find my North Star again? I am delighted today that our guests, our panelists, our usual suspects that you enjoy hearing from are with us today. We have Pastor J.T. Johnson, Stacey Owens, and Dr. Tierney. Welcome, everyone.
Hey, Dr. Jacquie.
Hey, y'all. Oh, my goodness. These topics that we've been talking about the last several weeks have just been really, joyful and exciting. And I'm not saying that today is not going to be that way, but, oftentimes we get to that space as leaders and guiding other people, each of you in your own right are holding people's lives in the palm of your hands because you're coaches, your pastors, your educators and administrators. And there are days when sometimes discovering what we look like in order to be able to move other people forward can often be a daunting task. And so as we think about just the general things that are happening in the world today, I'd like to ask each of you first, how are you doing? I think that's the first thing. Sometimes we have to do this self-check. So Pastor JT, how you doing? I want to start there. How are you doing, sir? Because you do a lot.
I'm doing great, Dr. Jacquie. How are you doing? I'm doing, and I think if I can be honest, I'm doing good because the pandemic taught me, well, you need to start being. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of had to spend some time repurposing me and identifying things and identifying where I was dividing me up and really started to make some real conscious decisions about my time and about my emotional capital. Where was I investing it and what areas I needed to divest, I needed to withdraw myself from. So with that, over time, I'm being, I believe, the best version of me today. And I believe that in that space, I can say I'm doing good.
I love that answer.
All right. So I have a follow-up question for you related to that, because you mentioned a word, divest. And that literally, for those of you who are watching and me, sometimes figuring out how to pull yourself away from some things. Was that an easy process or a difficult process for you when you came to the realization of it?
Difficult, because I'm still having those moments. But one of the things that I have really forced Jamel to do is really value my time. And I believe that that is the thing that I'm fighting with every day, because in the space that I operate in, I believe that we're always seen as superheroes, because not only am I a pastor, I serve in so many other capacities of service. And so when you are serving mankind, you sometimes forget that you need that same service that you are rendering to other people. So what I have done now is I've really started to value my day, value my time, and then be honest with myself to identify the capacity in which I'm operating in. And then with that, I have come to a point that if I'm not able to do it, I've told myself, you did all that you had the capacity to do, and you can operate in the grace that God has given you. Do your best and leave God the rest.
Sounds like an outstanding plan. Dr. Tierney, how you doing?
So I love what my brother just said, Pastor JT. I love what you just said. And my answer to that is that I'm not doing. I'm truly being. I am being angry.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things that have, some of the bills that have been passed and the legislation, when I tell you, I'm just angry. I'm being sad. Sad about some of the things that I'm seeing just happen in this country and the lives that are being taken. I'm being confused, confused on what's next. Sometimes confused on what can I do. Sometimes I feel like I'm just like screaming into the void, so that I'm being honest. I'm being honest about how I feel. I'm being honest about what I need. I'm being honest about where I am. I'm being in community with people that I love and people that love me, and spending that time staying connected and close. So I'm spending less time doing in this season, and more time being. And in me being, sometimes I'm sad, sometimes I'm angry, sometimes I'm confused, sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I just want to peel the paint off the walls, but allowing myself to just be, so that I can come out on the other side with a clear, like you said, a North Star of who I am, where I am, and whose I am, and allowing that to then be my guide.
I think that those are very important tips, because as you engage more with yourself, it allows you, as you said, to be honest, to be vulnerable, and to be transparent. And oftentimes, audience, let me just say, being honest and transparent and vulnerable with yourself is the hardest thing to be, because oftentimes people see that as being weak. But oftentimes it's in our weakness that we find these great moments of clarity and directionality, so we know what our next move should be. Being intentional about the space in which we live in, the people with whom we engage, and how we say what we say and do what we do becomes extremely important, because other people are fractured. Other people are feeling frail and vulnerable. So the more we know how to build ourselves up as leaders, the better capable we are in helping other people. One of the persons that I love so much who is capable and able of doing that. Hey, Stacey Owens, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well today. Now, if you would have asked me this question a couple of weeks ago, I was a mess. So I am going to say that in my present moment, I'm learning to be intentional about just being present in the moment of recognizing my emotions and recognizing when I need to pull back. And so I spend so much time feeding into others that sometimes I forget about myself. And 2 weeks ago, reality hit me in my face, and I had to pull back, and I had to take some time to reflect on what I was doing, why I was doing it. I had to create some barriers. I had to say, you know what? It's okay that you want to work and protect others, but nobody's out here protecting you but you. So I had to start learning how, at that moment, 2 weeks ago, how to pull back and start putting up some things that would give me some protection, because in that space, I did not have anybody that was feeding and pouring into me. So if you ask me today, I'm okay. I'm doing really well today. And I'll probably be doing excellent tomorrow. But as long as we can stay intentionally connected to our emotions and in control of our own emotions, you can always pull back from whatever spaces you're taking into.
I want to thank each of you for your transparency, because as we take break and move into this next segment, we want to aid and guide our audience. Now, let me tell you, this show is about being able to live a balanced life. And so many things get thrown at us. Literally, it's almost like you have a few drops of water too many on one side of a thing and the whole roof caves in. And I know that some of us feel that way sometimes, that there is a weight that is on us that we didn't put on ourselves. So when we come back after the break, we're going to have a little conversation about how do we get the weight of the world off of our shoulders.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Over the window seats. These are the only bins that will accommodate larger rollerboards.
They put 10 in here?
10, and you don't come out till you die. And you eat him, you eat 10.
Oh my God.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And you've heard some great tips. You know, our guests, our panelists that are with us every week, we're strong, empowered people. But at the same time, there's stuff that happens in each of our lives that literally knock us off our heels. And so I hope that you are able to see in us ways to begin to move your life forward, just as we're talking about what it means to do some self-reflection, to be overwhelmed and be okay with it, and to say, you know what? I'm not okay, and I'm okay with that. Welcome back, everyone, because, you know, this conversation and dialogue that we're having, it all relates to how do we live a balanced life when we're out there in the world helping so many other people. There was something that was mentioned, and I want to say there were two things that Pastor JT said, and then each of you said something that was very relevant. And I want our audience to be able to capitalize on that. I heard capacities of service, and each of you serve in different ways. So I do want to ask a question related to that, but I also heard emotional capital and screaming into the void. And if I can tell you the numbers of time that we all want to put our face in the pillow and just and just yell and just think that everything is going to get better. Sometimes that's all it takes. But when we talk about these capacities of service, so after you've gotten yourself together, and even when you're only just a little bit together, each of you still has work to do. You know, just because you're feeling in a funk and feeling down and things are going haywire, you don't have the ability to step out because you're fully invested, in the life that you live and the people that you serve. Pastor JT, you're out and about in your city and people call on you for a lot of things. And I want the audience to get to know you better. So tell us a little bit about some of the groups that you serve and how you are called upon, and emotionally and in your capacity, how do you still dive in and help others?
Wow. Okay, so how much more time do we have on the show?
Take your time. Take your time.
So, audience, my name is Jamel Johnson, and I literally have like about 17 jobs, really. So I pastor the Word Church, which puts me in an amazing space of service. I believe that I'm one of the more hands-on pastors, really being a part of the community that our church is in. I've always said that while so many people are trying to get the world to know who they are from a religious standpoint, like if your church is focused on being worldwide or world known, it's a travesty if the people in the neighborhood that your church is in don't know who you are. So we have embraced that, which has caused so many more opportunities and doors of service to open from it. So I serve as the executive director of the Fulfillment Project, which is our nonprofit organization that was birthed from the church. That's where we do a lot of our community service. And from that community service, in one of the major floods we had in the city, we were serving, and I met the mayor, and he wanted to know who I was, because when there was a time for pastors to be on a platform with him. I told him, hey, I can talk to you after. I got work to do. And I was loading a truck with water. And that impressed him. And he came and talked to me. And immediately I was put over his faith-based coalition in the city of Houston, which pushes me to another level of service. I also serve as a chaplain for the Houston Police Department, as well as our Precinct 1 constable, which puts me at another level of service. I serve as the chaplain of the 100 Black Men of Metropolitan Houston, which puts me at another level of service. I sit on the steering committee of the Houston chapter of the My Brother's Keeper initiative that President Barack Obama started, which puts me at another level of service. I've written 7 books, and with those books I travel, and I am a motivational speaker, which puts me at another level of service. But more so, I am a husband to my wife, Natasha, and father to my 2 boys, Adonis and Jalen, which has me serving 24/7. So, Dr. Jacquie, I don't know if that answered your question, but that's a little bit about me and all the work that I do. It seemed like it's a never-ending cycle, but during quarantine, all of those areas pulled on me even more because we were at a high alert in our nation, even to the point where I was on the front lines, walking hand in hand with some of the pastors. It was a picture that floated around with myself, Joel Osteen, our mayor, our chief of police, as we all marched with George Floyd's family in the streets of downtown Houston. But it was in that moment where, after attending George Floyd's funeral and coming home with tears in my eyes, my wife told me, Jamel, enough is enough. And so for about 2 or 3 weeks, I didn't do anything. And I think that was probably the greatest reset that I had. Unfortunately, that reset, I pressed the play button and hit fast forward again. But she helps me with my temperature base, because it's one thing that and she loves being in the background. She never really likes to be in the front. But one thing that she told me that sticks with me, and I actually have taken it and use it on platforms, as I've taken a lot of what Dr. Tierney and Dr. Jacquie and Stacey has said, and speak to others. But my wife told me, she said, if you ever looked at the movies with Superman, he was Clark Kent the majority of the movie. He was only Superman for a few scenes. She said, you got to be careful if you want to live in the Cape when the Cape is not meant for you to live in.
Mm-hmm. Come on, Dr. Natasha. I'm going to need her to that sermon for some of us, because oftentimes we don't know when to take off our cape. And I like this conversation that we're having, as I'm thinking about the development and where we're going in this conversation. These one-on-ones are going to be helpful. So I have a follow-up question for you, Pastor JT, related to who you are as a person. When you think about all of the ways in which you serve, because you said each time another level of service, another level of service, another level of service. But what it says as I'm listening is that you're very consistent in who you are as a person, and you recognize and identify your value and your worth in the places where you serve at every level. Is that natural to you as a person, especially as a man, to step into the fray? And I know you're not running into burning buildings and different things like that, but at the same time, you are putting yourselves on the front lines so that the community is aware that there's an advocate for them in the space where they are hurting.
Yes, ma'am. And I would say it's in my blood. My mother, she did her undergrad work at George Christian College, which is a HBCU in East Texas. And she would come home or come to Houston on the weekends and go to a church in 3rd Ward called Wheeler Avenue that at that time was pastored by a young pastor, Pastor William Lawson. And my mom would actually go to Woolworth, and she would picket, and she would participate in the sit-ins. And she was very open and transparent of speaking to me about that as I was growing up and telling me about the horror stories, and then some of the initiatives that she worked in concert with Barbara Jordan, with Sheila Jackson Lee, even with Sinfonia Thompson, my mom, and I always talk about how, Black history, we think about some of the names that I mentioned, Shirley Chisholm and, Dr. King, and these names are notable. But I always say, Black history is in my house. I can pick up the telephone and call and talk to a person that fought for our freedom and fought for our civil rights. So that's something that I saw with her. And I just kind of picked the baton up. I was every president that I could be, I think, starting with our 8th grade class. I ran for class president and then moved on from there. I was 9th grade president, 10th grade president, student body president, student body president at Texas Southern. So it's just, I guess, just service has just been in me. And I think that it's because of the matriarch of the family. And I believe that she passed it on, and I'm running with the baton now.
I think that those are admirable qualities, because as you are engaging, you're looking at your life, you've got these living history examples. Oftentimes young people don't have examples in their home of who to follow or how to, I would say imitate or mimic. Give us one tip, if you will, when we think about the mass shootings, the political polarization, and all of the things that are going on around the country. Give us a tip or two that you would share with young people on how to get engaged today without doing too much, so that they don't find themselves either in trouble or getting off balance, because they are young and still learning.
Got you. Well, one of the things that I would say, if you are a teen, or you are you're a young millennial, or Generation Z, I think now. But if you really want to get involved and be a part, there's always something that's going on, just how it is. If you're on TikTok or if you're on Instagram, that hashtag, even on Facebook, that hashtag, it used to be a pound button for us back in the day. But that hashtag is like, and so I just dated myself and showed how old I was. But if you hit that hashtag just as much as you hit the hashtag and want to find out, who is doing dope lashes in the city, just as much as you hit that hashtag and you want to find out who's selling real Jordans in the city, you can actually hit that hashtag and you can find out ways that you can be involved. And this is another thing that I would say: get involved, stay involved, but you can easily impact the life of somebody that is next to you. So many times we look for the next Dr. King. But if you know anything about the story of Dr. King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he was the son of Martin Luther King Sr. And so he was actually just doing what he saw being done. So there's possibly somebody that you are connected to, a brother, a sister, a cousin, a niece or nephew, somebody in your village, that if you're not able to help on a mass scale, if you're able to save one, you are actually doing the work of someone that may not even have access to do what you're called to do.
Having access to do what you're called to do is something that's very vital and important in each of our communities. When we come back after the break, I'm going to have a one-on-one with Stacey Owens, and just to find out how she's doing what she does in her local community when we're back after the break.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hey everyone. everyone, and welcome back. You know, Pastor JT has given us some really great insight on how we can find role models and examples in our community or in our family to help us begin to move and get started. One other such person is Stacey Owens, and I'm always excited when she joins us because the work that she's doing in her community matters, not just to the students in her school, but to those around her that she serves. Hey, Stacey.
Hello.
I am delighted that our audience is getting this time to share, one-on-one with you in how we're growing and what we're doing. So tell us a little bit about your school, and then we'll dive into some deeper questions about things happening on the landscape and how you're helping children navigate them.
Okay. Zecca School of Arts and Technology is a K-8 public charter school. I was given the vision to open the school based on my personal experiences with my son. He struggled in a traditional school, and God gave me the vision to create that place that would have been beneficial to students that are like him. And so that's how Zecca was actually birthed. And we do a lot of great things for students. We do a lot of great things for the community. I have to be in a lot of trauma situations because we serve a high-risk population. But that's how Zecca was formulated.
You know, when I work with you and I talk with you often about the work that you do, and your children are literally watching because they're in homes outside of you. They're with people who keep the news on 24/7, or they're riding in cars where they're hearing about devastation. Does that impact the quality of life of students, yours in particular, but as a whole? And how do we help our community, understand and identify, talking to kids about mass shootings, things that we're seeing happening with civil rights? Children at young ages are being called out of their name by other students at such a young age. How is this affecting and impacting them psychologically? Our students, they are connected to the world, and they do hear a lot of what is happening, good and bad, around them. And I think what we as educators here at Zecca, what we try to be connected to is, what is the emotional balance of our students? How is what's happening in your circle impacting you emotionally, and increasing that level of emotional intelligence that they need to be able to have within them so that they can process what's going on in the world around them. So when you start talking about things like school shootings and mass shootings that's happening, I serve a population that, I serve a high African-American population. And so we're constantly having conversation with our students about how to handle such a situation. If you find yourself in a situation where you're stopped by the police, we don't want you to be fearful of it. We want you to follow the Zecca way. And for us, our first 2 steps in the Zecca way is you got to know how to follow directions, and you got to be able to be in control of your emotions. So we start there. You have to always be in control of your emotions, because when you get out of control of your emotion, your brain shut down, you stop thinking, you can't think cognitively, you can't solve problems. So you got to stay in control of your emotions so that you can think your way through any situation. And you have to be able to know that the goal is not always to be right. The goal is to be safe. So if you're stopped, or if you come in a situation where you have to interact with the police, we want to teach our students to listen and be able to follow the direction, and try to just always be thoughtful about, how can I leave this situation to get home? Because getting home is the mission. Being right isn't the mission. When it comes to the mass shootings, we're always talking about the matrix. Kids live in the matrix now. They live in the matrix so much that the matrix world and reality start crossing. So we do a lot to try to keep those 2 worlds separate, and to help them think through, the violence in the matrix world is so natural. You play all these games, Roadblock, all these different games that they're into, and you're shooting and you're talking and exposed to violence. I can't stop that from a principal perspective, from a school administrative perspective. But what we do here is we have those conversations, because we want to make sure that when you put your game down and you come back into the real world of reality, you better know about that
school to prison pipeline. You better know about those zero tolerance policies. We tell that to our kids as young as kindergarten. You need to know that so that you don't come in and say and do nothing that's going to trigger you to be in that situation where you got to think your way through it to start with. So it's all about being in control of your emotions and knowing how to think and follow those directions.
So I can hear our audience already saying, this is such a harsh reality for kids. Why do they even need to have the talk? Because the talk now is not just about the birds and the bees. It's about stop and frisk. The reality is not just about, getting up in the morning, having a happy-go-lucky day, but anything can happen in a grocery store, in a barber shop, at the park, at the mall, just wherever you may find yourself. How common now for your kids do you feel, and I'm asking this from an emotional perspective, because some of our audience that's listening, some of them are thinking about, do I pull my kids out of school now? Do I send them back in the fall? Uvalde shook the nation. We thought that Sandy Hook, was something that would never happen again. But the reality is it may not ever end. When you think of these things, why is it important for parents not to stick their head in the sand and to have some level of conversation with their kids about the reality of the world?
Because Sandy Hook has moved from the school, it's moved to the grocery store, it's moved to the streets, it's moved to the movie theaters. I mean, you could be anywhere and have that experience. So putting your head in the sand or living in a bubble is not going to change the impact or the fact that people around you are not thinking and doing such as you. So the first thing is having an awareness and being able to, now that you have that awareness, being able to think your way through, if you're in those situations, what do I do? And you don't want to be in that moment to start thinking about it. You want to have those conversations ahead of time so that we can start recognizing and seeing when we may need to make a change or do something different. I tell kids all the time, the biggest thing is going back to that emotional intelligence. Can you respect the differences of others? And we need to have those conversations. Can we be okay with being different from each other? Can we protect others? Can we see something that's out of place and feel safe enough to go talk about it? Because that's the thing that's going to be the difference between saving somebody's life or saving your own life. Can we just be in connection with people to the point where we can get back to that level of socialization that we used to do in the past? With kids nowadays being so inundated in their video worlds and games, the need to be able to socialize is not really there. And so we create these situations where kids are socially awkward and don't know how to get along with others. I always tell my staff, and I make sure we do this yearly, we go outside just to simply learn how to play kickball. Because we used to do that back in the day. We can go outside, make rules together, break rules together, and be okay with it. Nowadays, we break a rule or come together to socialize and interact with each other. We fall apart when things don't go our way. So we have to just get back to balancing those emotional and social needs that students and adults need.
Well, you definitely said two things that resonate with kids and adults, and it was follow directions and be in control of your emotions, because those are two things, as you said, that can oftentimes, when your emotions just run you, Stacey, you know this well, there's a tendency to kind of like, I'm going to take my ball and go home. I don't want to play anymore. You people make me sick, all the things. And then people take to social media and they say things that they can't take back. Honestly, people, whatever you put on social media, it's there for eternity, And so oftentimes your kids are growing. You said your school is K through 8. In that K through 8 environment, you especially being in the South, you're in one of those states that has some interesting rules. So I'm going to ask this question as it relates to civic engagement and how students respect humanity. What do you do in that capacity to guide children toward seeing people, I want to say, celebrating the things that we have alike versus our differences? What does that look like for you and for Zecca in training your staff and your kids and preparing them to be just good civic-minded people?
So this might not be the popular answer, and I'm okay with that. But, for us, we had to go back to diversity. We had to go back to cultural irrelevance. We had to go back where everybody in the world, where everybody started arguing about, should you teach history? Should you teach this? Should you teach whatever? We went into that space of saying, no, whatever's in our building, we want to have a curriculum that looks like and mirrors what and who we are, so that we can learn how to know other cultures, understand other cultures, and learn how to respect other cultures, and learn how to come together as one. And that starts with first respecting all cultures. So we had to change our curriculum to reflect what enters our building. And that is not the popular conversation right now with the whole thing that's going on with, should we teach history or should we not? And that's one of the things that we did. We embraced it. We sort of come together and just make sure that we brought in our textbooks. We brought in, just different experiences and exposures so that we can expose children to something that's beyond our immediate self and our immediate circle. So I would encourage you to say, who's influencing you?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Who's influencing you and who's influencing your kids? When we come back after the break, we're going to continue this conversation as we're growing and understanding and dialoguing in a host of different ways. It's important for us to really decide where we stand in a sense of, what do you look like as a person? Are you authentically happy? Are you authentically pessimistic? Are you authentically optimistic? Sometimes our personal view as an individual can really taint, help, or hinder how we see the world. When we're back after the break, we're going to talk to Dr. Tierney, a level up coach who's going to really engage us on what it looks like to find your center and North Star when we're back after the break.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. Whew, my goodness. Pastor JT and Stacey Owens have really given us some tools and tips and nuggets that we can live by. Whether you're trying to engage in the world from your own platform and perspective, whether you're helping children and parents navigate the landscape of the world today, it behooves each of us to really sit down and reflect on who we are as people. I want to have a one-on-one now with Dr. Tierney, because I believe that as we engage with others, it's important to know who we are. Hey, Dr. Tierney.
Hey, Dr. Jacquie.
How's it going, lady?
I'm being.
Now, you heard her talk about that in a previous segment, because being is oftentimes a great space to determine, in your terms, how to level up. I want to talk for a moment to get our audience to know you a little better about the work that you do, but also with all of the things that are happening in the news. Oftentimes, you might just need to stand still. Give us a little bit of insight about who you are and your work, and then we'll dive in from there.
Perfect. So hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Tierney, and I am the Level Up Life Coach. I love, Dr. Jacquie, that you split those two out and said, who are you and what you do? So who I am is I am a woman of faith. I am analytical. I am silly. I am loving. I am sometimes selfish. I am honest. I am steadfast. I am loyal. And what I do is, in the many hats that I wear, I am a certified celebrity life coach and balanced living coach. I am a professional motivational speaker, professional consultant, and an author. I am TT. I am a wife. I am a daughter. I am a grandbaby. I am an A1 since day one. I am a sister. So I wear a number of hats. I fill a number of roles. But the thing that it first comes down to is, who am I? Because who I am influences and impacts what I do. Who I am and whose I am, all of that goes into defining your North Star. Oftentimes we get our do before our who. We start to focus in on the things that I need to do and feeling like we have to respond to all of the things that we are seeing happening in this world without first stopping to say, okay, wait, who am I? What is it that I need right now? Whose am I? And I said, I am a woman of faith. So the first thing I have to tap into is, okay, what would Jesus say? And what would Jesus do in this, situation based on who was Jesus and what is his character? What is God's character? Because my character should reflect his character. But I only come to that from first focusing on who am I? And so that's the thing that I often teach my clients. And I've said it before in another episode, that's one of the first questions I ask my clients. Who are you? And it's a simple question, but it's something that we often don't think about. And I'm going to tell you, that's one of the hardest questions. My clients hate that question. They hate when I ask that question, because we don't often want to think about who we are. We just want to get to doing, get to getting, but taking that pause to really focus in on who you are can really help you navigate all of the things that are going on in our world right now. And it can help define what it is that you should be doing right now.
Defining who you are and what you should be doing. Oftentimes those things don't line up, because, you can look at yourself and say, well, everyone has always said I'm supposed to be this person, or everyone always said I should go down this pathway. But Dr. T, when you think about it and you're really, navigating this landscape for yourself, how do you find out who you really are when you've had so many people for so long in your ear, other people directing your life? And a lot of people are waking up and have come out of this pandemic saying, I don't want to do that anymore. Great resignation is real. How are we helping people navigate this great resignation as they are finding their North Star again on their own terms?
Absolutely. This is where, and I said it when we were talking earlier, kind of backstage. Sometimes we have to stick our head in the sand, honestly and truly, not that we leave it in the sand, but sometimes we just have to, as my brother, Pastor JT said, we have to divest. We have to pull back. We have to pull back from the social media. We have to pull back from family sometimes. We have to pull back from our friends, and we have to just get quiet and get by ourselves. I tell people all the time, the coach has a coach. I have a business coach, I have my life coach, and I have a therapist. Okay. So I have a team of people around me that when I pull back, I'll get in that circle with them and say, hey, tell me about me. This is what's coming up. This is what I'm feeling. Help me to navigate through this in a way that is healthy, in a way that I know is safe. I'm in a safe space, and not in a way with someone that has a history of me, but that can look at for face value what it is that I'm saying, what it is that I'm feeling, what it is that I'm experiencing, to help me see me more clear. And that's a lot of the work when you talk about working with a coach or with a therapist, and what the work that I do with my clients, I serve as a mirror for my client to help them see themselves more clearly, not based on the things that people said to them in the past, not based on someone else's assessment of their gifts and their characteristics, but your own assessment, because that's the only thing that matters. I can say all day that you're amazing. You're going to be a rock star. If you don't believe that, if you don't see that, if you don't feel that, then it doesn't matter a hill of beans what I say. The only thing that matters is truly what you say about you. So shall a man thinketh as he is. Whatever you think, that is what you are, and so taking that time to really get to how you see you, how you feel about you, that may be something that you can do with your coach or your therapist. That may be something that you can do with your pastor. It may be something that you do in between time and you and your journal and your pen, but taking that time to stop all of the doing so that you can get to the being, and just being by yourself sometimes, being quiet long enough to get those divine downloads, to really hear yourself think for a minute.
So I'm going to ask this hard question. It's not going to be hard for you, but it's going to be difficult for our audience to stomach. When we talk about finding your truth, people do have to be careful sometimes in discovering, is the truth based on who I was? Is the truth based on who I am? Or is the truth based on who I am in the process of becoming? Why is finding your truth central to locating your North Star?
Absolutely. So I have to lead out with that because, again, I'm a woman of faith. So whenever we're talking about truth, I have to pull in the truth of the Word of God, because that, if you are a believer, then that serves as that North Star. What is the truth according to who God says you are? What is the truth according to his principles? Because oftentimes what we'll do is we'll accept what the world says about us as the truth and how we see ourselves, which that can be completely contrary, which often, not often, it usually is completely contrary to what the Word of God, says about who you are. So that's the first thing, just kind of out the gate. I have to say that when we are trying to discern what exactly is the truth, and our truth, what lens are you putting that in? Are you putting it through the filter of the Word of God? Are you putting it through the filter of culture? Are you putting it through the filter of your family tradition? Because that will then help you to delineate what exactly is your truth. The other part of that, when you say the truth of who you were back then, truth of now, and truth of, where you're going, here's the thing. Who I was in my 20s is not who I am now. So some of the things that I held as true back then, I had to go back and look at that thing now at this age. Now at this age, I had to go back and look at that and say, okay, that might have been true back then, but that is no longer my truth. And that's okay. So truth in how we see ourselves, and it constantly, as we're continuing to grow, as we're continuing to learn, the things that I needed then, the things that were my truth and my North Star then are not my truth and my North Star, now. So being able to be flexible and patient with yourself as you're continuing to grow, and knowing that the things that I may put my stick in the ground on today and say, okay, this is exactly what it is. In 10 years, it may not be that. As we're seeing our country is changing so fast and things are happening so fast, we have to make sure that we are constantly assessing where we are, what we need, and what's going on, so that we end up in this space where we're not holding on to some antiquated truth that is no longer the truth. The things that the forefathers of this country held as true is no longer true. So if we continue to hold on to that, then we'll end up being in a world of mess, because we're holding on to these antiquated truths. So make sure that your truth is, you are doing that work of looking at who you are right now. What is it that I need right now? Not just being on the hamster wheel of do, but making sure you're looking at your who and using that as your lens. Again, if you are a believer, the Word of God is your first lens that you use to examine your truth. But not just holding on to something as true because that's the way it's always been.
Let me just say, the way that it's always been will never be again. And I know that there are people having a difficult time jumping off that launching pad. As we prepare to go into our next break, let me just say there are a couple of things that Dr. T said that I need to remind you of. Now, just the analogy that she gave, your past self, your present self, your future self, it is very clear that we had a pre-pandemic life, a present pandemic life, and at some point there's going to be a post-pandemic life. As we're going into this break, I want us to think about, how do we gauge what our lives look like as we prepare to go forward? Now, some of you have taken a Myers-Briggs. Some of you have taken 16personalities.com. Some of you have taken your DISC, your DISC, and you have a gauge of who you are. I want to encourage you to consider taking those again, because when we come back after the break, we're going to kind of dialogue and find out who we really are as people. Helps us see which lens we're watching the world. When we're back after the break.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe. We all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. Dr. T, Stacey Owens, and Pastor JT have given us some wisdom keys and tools that we can use to really discover not only how to find our North Star again, but how to really navigate the world in which we live. Oftentimes, there are so many things that are thrown at us, and we get bombarded not only by information, but our own feelings and emotions and the feelings and emotions of others. I want to invite back everyone so that we can have a little bit of a conversation on how do we find our takeaways in the world in which we live? You see, as we are growing and as we're moving and as we're discovering who we really are, sometimes we need to utilize tools in order to help us discover who we are, because oftentimes people just don't know, because people just been talking to them, yakety yak all the time. Pastor JT, how do you stop that wheel of conversation and discover who you are as a person? What are some of the assessments that you've taken in life that really show you that you are who you believe you are all along?
I think I've taken everything that is out there because I really want to have a true picture of myself. But you know, one thing that I want to do, I want to pull on something that Dr. T said. And I think that this is probably one of the most important things, is having someone in your life that you value enough that they can be a mentor, a coach, because this is one thing, and this was a moment that I had with a group of boys, and I asked them about, their favorite basketball player, and they gave out their names, and I asked, well, what did they all have in common? And, they said grit, or they said hustle, or, they said that they had passion. And I said, that's true. I said, but one thing that always happened and they always had was a coach. And on every level that you go higher in, more coaches are required. Mm-hmm. Because if you look on the little league, that one coach is trying to figure out how he can put all of these 15 little boys in and give them playing time. But when you get to the NBA, it is about 15 coaches, and some coaches you don't even see. And this is there to help those players develop and be the best that they can be. So I will say, get you a coach, because that coach is the person that cares enough about you to pull you to the next level, even when you don't feel like you're qualified to go.
Absolutely. Thank you. Stacey Owens.
Absolutely.
I'm going to have to agree with that, because I've taken 16 personalities, I've taken the DISC, and I've learned a lot about myself in those moments. But life is what teaches you the most. The problem is, if you're only processing life through your own lens or through just your emotional self, you might miss a few things. So you definitely do have to make sure you surround yourself with someone that's other than the yes person. You need that person that can tell you no. You need that person that can tell you you've gone too far. You need that person who can tell you that's a great idea, but you might be out of season for it, because truth out of season bears no fruit. So, just like the other panelists, you just have to have a coach at every level that you go to that can assist you in helping to navigate whatever it is that you're dealing with.
Dr. T.
Well, as the coach, I'm always going to be a proponent of coaching. But in terms of the different personality assessments, I've taken all of them. The Enneagram, the Myers-Briggs, the DISC, the 16 personalities. And it's funny, across all of them that I've taken, even though they all have their different ways that they produce the results. So like the Enneagram has numbers 5, 8, 1, 6, and the Myers-Briggs has the letters. They all come out to show that pretty much I'm getting the same results across all of them. And the thing there that really stands out to me is that you can have all this information. We can have the assessments, but if we don't have that person to sit down and show our assessments to and say, hey, what is this and why is this, and help me connect this with this. And, and that's the beauty of having a coach. A coach that can take your assessments, give you the proper assessments, take your assessments and help make it make sense for you, because a lot of things that we do that are just natural to us, or, we don't even put it in the right perspective because we've been doing it our whole lives and it just is, and we don't know what to do with it, or we think that there's something wrong with it and it's quirky, it's, this, and that's just the unique way God created you. And so having that coach to say, hey, here's what you can do with that. Hey, have you ever thought about it, this way? Someone that is, again, that you feel safe with, that maybe doesn't have the history with you, but that can look at you and your life and your, gifts and talents with a fresh set of eyes and help you kind of put those Lego pieces together. As Pastor JT said, the higher up you go, the more coaches you need. So you heard me just say, I have a business coach, I have a life coach. I actually left off, I have a coach's coach. So I really have 3 coaches, in addition to my therapist, because when you get to a certain level, and give me all the eyes I could get, give me all that is successful people's secret weapon, is that they have a lot of coaches. They have a good team, around them. So yes, as the coach, I'm going to tell you, get a coach. If you're looking for a great coach, look no further, hit my website, get a free session. Let's talk about it.
Absolutely. In my reflection today, I want to be able to share with our audience the value and importance of being able to move your life forward. As you can tell, there is no shortage of a wealth of information. You've heard from some outstanding professionals who can guide your life toward getting to where you need to go. I have to tell you, there are 3 things that I literally hang my hat on when it comes to me finding my North Star, but also being able to sustain it. And what that looks like for me is it has to be mutually respectful. It has to be mutually beneficial. And we have to be able to come to some mutual understanding about where we're going and how we're going to play in the sandbox together. Oftentimes we lose good people and lose good friends because we just cannot see eye to eye. Well, the honest truth is you may not need to see eye to eye. You just need to have a directionality and an intentionality about where you're going to go, and then let each person be individuals to get there the way that is best for them. If you're struggling today with determining how to find your North Star, of course, you can reach any one of our guests today. But at the same time, I want you to consider going to upenn.edu, UPENN, at the University of Pennsylvania. They have an amazing program that is designed to help you find who you are and how you want to live in this life. Surveys and assessments on the meaning of life, authentic happiness, grit, grace, and optimism, even gratitude. Sometimes we lose our North Star because we're looking in the wrong direction. I hope today that we've said something to you that will help you find your star again. Bye now.